In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this cute little t-shirt dress. It's one of my new patterns. It's very simple and it's very beginner friendly. This is the back. So without further ado, let's get to it. This is the most beginner friendly pattern that I've made so far. The first thing that I'm going to do is check my square. I've already done that. It's an inch, so the pattern size is perfect. And then I cut out my pattern pieces. I leave a little flap on one of the sides that I'm going to match. Then I'm going to match these little squares according to the letter and just tape them in place. Or you can apply glue to the little flap and just glue it like that. Now I've pinned the pattern pieces to the fabric. The front, you only need one, so it's the fabric is not placed on the fold. And for the back, we need two, so I folded the fabric over, and that way I can get two mirrored pieces. So the main stretch is going this way across the body. Now I can cut out my pattern pieces. I'm marking my back opening on the wrong side of the fabric. So that I remember not to sew over the opening. You only have to mark one side, whatever side you're going to be sewing from. First, I'll sew the shoulders closed. For this fabric, I'm using a serpentine stitch, which is this one that looks kind of like a zigzag. And I'm setting it at 3, a little bit longer. I find that the stitch a little bit longer works better for the fabric that I'm using. I'm using a universal needle, but you can use a ballpoint needle or a stretch stitch needle. And I usually use a little piece of fabric and start stitching on it, and then fall off to my actual stitching, because if I don't do that, sometimes the machine just wants to suck that little fabric into the throat plate. And I'm moving my needle so that it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's okay if it's a little bit more, depending on how stretchy your fabric is. So now I'm going to go ahead and serge across the top of the shoulders. seams that I need serging are serged for the moment. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to the machine and close the back. Now we're gonna flip these seams open, and I'm gonna sew a little top stitching around the stand opening. And you can do a regular straight stitch for this. Make sure that the seams are pressed open, and then sew around the opening. I'm going to sew around about an eighth of an inch away. Just to make sure I'm catching those seams. There we go. Next step is to fold over the neck opening and the arm openings and top stitch them. For the neck, I usually just clip the very top just to reduce the bulk at the top there when I fold it over. And fold it down, and I fold it just enough so that the serging stitches don't show. You can do the same thing for this here. Just make sure you're not cutting into the stitches. And I'm going to pin everything all the way around. And then I'm going to the machine and top stitch it. Now I'm done with the hemming the sleeves and the neck. And this fabric sews pretty nicely without getting all stretched out and out of shape. If you find that your seams get stretched out as you're sewing them, you can use tearaway in stabilizer underneath the fabric, or you can hand baste it. So the next step is to sew my seams together, and the important thing here is to make sure that these two seams match in the underarm. I find sometimes that if I start here or even ending here, the machine kind of overlaps the seam one on top of the other not matching. So pin that really good and pay really good attention at the machine when you're sewing that. So I'm going to pin my seams, both side seams, and then I'm going to sew. And after that I'll serge. Here I'm going back to my serpentine stitch, and I want to make sure this is nice and even, so I'm going to start on the bottom. So to serge in the round, just start with your hem right at the cutting blade. And then just keep serging all the way around, just taking off a little bit. For my hem, I am using the serpentine stitch just because this has a potential to stretch. So I'm going to start at the very back. I'm using a stitch length of 3.5. You can have it as long or as short as you'd like. At this point the dress is done. I'm just going to hide my serger tails here at the top. You can also just cut them and use seam sealant or tie them. After this, I'm going to go to my iron and press it so that it looks nice. Flatten out the hem seams and all that. If you're so inclined, you can do a little stitch here, just like a little zigzag to hold this seam in place towards the back. Optional. And then to dress my doll, just take the arms off and the head. And you don't have to, you can just put your arms up and put it over the head because it stretches. And there's your dress.